The Rakahuri River in North Canterbury is home to some of the world's rarest birds. They've adapted to survive in extremely challenging conditions on a river which rises in the foothills of the Southern Alps and flows out across the Canterbury Plains. The Rakahuri is a braided river comprised of many strands which often change in floods or dry spells. The birds which live here nest on open shingle and their eggs are vulnerable to floods, but a far greater threat to their survival are changes to their environment wrought by human beings. Without our help, they could easily become extinct.
Braided rivers are a diagnostic of Canterbury. We take them for granted, but they're actually quite unique. And on them, there are biodiversity, native biodiversity is still existing. And the most obvious component of that biodiversity are the native birds. Birds such as the ribble, the black-fronted tern, the black-billed gull. The ribble, well, you couldn't really get a more unique species for Canterbury. It's the only bird in the world with a bill which turns sideways. And it only breeds on Canterbury's braided rivers. Well, you can't get much more unique than that. Tern and the gull, you might think, plenty down on the coast. But they too, they're inland specialists and they're actually rarer than the ribble. So these birds deserve attention, and unfortunately their populations have plummeted in the last, or particularly the last 50, 80 years.
Other species on the river include banded dotterels, pied oystercatchers and pied stilts. Their populations are now under threat, having fallen dramatically in just a few decades. It was clear that if nothing was done, the birds would soon disappear completely. So in 1999, a group of locals formed the Rakahuri River Care Group. The volunteers took on a task that was just too big for government agencies.
We all think of conservation work being done by the Department of Conservation, and they can't do everything and they have to look after Crown land. But we've got local communities who can really get to know their river, in this case the Rakahuri, get to know the problems, get to know the birds, the way the river works, and get really involved in something close to home. And so I think that's particularly why groups like River Care are important.
Well, DOC is simply not big enough to do all this work itself, and we really rely on community groups, and DOC's now providing funding and support for these groups to do this work.
The work that the Rakahuri River Care Group are doing is kaitiakitanga at its best. So they are stewards of the river, saving bird species, bringing them back from the brink. And so that activity fits within our value set.
Among the greatest threats the birds face is introduced predators, so the River Care Group run an intensive trapping program.
Without people doing predator control on the river, their chances of breeding success would be virtually zero, certainly in those periods of low flow. The islands that they nest on don't have the isolation from the predators that they once had, so controlling those predators helps the birds to have breeding success.
The River Care Group's members are practical people, but also have valuable scientific and technical skills.
They're collecting really good data on their results and their efforts, doing a bit of the science to help others, and even publishing papers in peer-reviewed journals about what they've been up to and proving that their efforts are having a positive impact for the birds.
As a result of the trapping program, the number of predators trapped has declined steadily since 2000. As well as battling predators, the volunteers face the challenge of human behaviour, with dogs and four-wheel drive vehicles posing a serious threat to the endangered birds. During the nesting season, the group attempt to block vehicle access to the river with the backing of Environment Canterbury and agreement with the combined four-wheel drive clubs. The birds evolved without predators and lay their eggs on open shingle, relying on camouflage to make them extremely difficult to detect.
Last spring, I spent a fair bit of time monitoring and photographing a pair of wrybill which were nesting just along the river here. They lost their first nest due to a flood, which was very disappointing. I think the eggs were probably just about to hatch when that happened. And 2 or 3 weeks later they tried again, and they were sitting on 2 eggs for 2 or 3 weeks. And one day Nick was down here and he saw some 4-wheel drive tracks which were going very close to where the nest was. I went down there and sure enough the nest had been destroyed. There was a dead chick, one which had only just been hatched in the last day or so, and a squashed egg with 4-wheel drive tracks going very close to it. That 4-wheel drive must have gone past 2 of our signs telling people to watch out for rare birds nesting in the river, and he'd done figures of 8, donuts and up and down, and that was the result of that.
Up until about 2014, we were seeing steady increases, which was very encouraging, which is a result of the awareness that we've been doing the predator control. But weeds were getting really bad, and weeds were encroaching on the bare shingle where the birds nest, and therefore bird numbers were actually going down over the last 2 years. But with these recent floods, plus some work we've done on the riverbed, clearing weeds, we're hoping to see an increase this year.
Several commercial operators extract shingle from the riverbed. While this may seem a threat to the bird's existence, in fact, properly informed operators can make it beneficial by clearing weeds.
Those dashed lines show where the gravel extraction has happened, and they correlate remarkably well with where the birds have been nesting.
Good morning all. Thank you very much for offering to help us with this annual survey of the Ashley River.
We do the survey to count populations every year, but we also monitor breeding success. There are dozens of tern species in the world, and most of them are coastal. There's just 4 that are inland specialists, and one of those is our black-fronted tern, which breeds on our braided rivers. With its orange bill and black head and orange legs, I think it's the most attractive bird on the river. But it's a very fickle breeder. It can abandon nests very readily, and therefore it has the poorest success of the birds that we follow on the river. So one we're really trying to look after, but so far we've had mixed success. There's certainly better numbers than there were before, but not quite as good as we would like to be.
The last 5 years, I think we have been making headway in that the public have been more educated, they've been kept out. The predator control with our hundreds of traps along the river by volunteers have kept the number of predators down a lot. And the birds have seemed to have constantly returned to the Ashley Rakahuri River, which is great. And we are increasing the wrybill count. Maybe not the gulls or the terns, but the wrybills are doing well. So in that way, yes, we just have to be optimistic, because if we don't, they will disappear altogether.
The efforts of the Ashley Rakahuri River Care Group have attracted the support of a local business.
We want to raise awareness so that everybody in Rangiora and everybody in North Canterbury knows how precious the braided river systems are in New Zealand. Everybody can do their little bit to help protect their little patch, and you feel good at the end of it, so it's always worth doing.
Public support is essential to the success of the conservation effort, so River Care Group members spread their message at events like the Ohoka Market. The aim is to raise awareness of the special birds, and this is done in a variety of ways.
One of our members has produced a children's book called Rear the Reckless Wrybill, and that goes into schools. And we also have produced bookmarks, and we've produced 7,000 of those so that every primary school child in Canterbury can receive one. So every time we go to talk to schools, they are handed out. So yes, definitely children are really important for all of us, for all sorts of things, but with us to look after the river. What we're trying to do is protect birds and their habitat in the Ashley River Rakahuri. There are 10,000 bird species in the world, and most of them have bills like that, just straight as a die. Some go up, some go down, but there's only one in the whole wide world which turns sideways, like that. And they only breed in Canterbury's braided rivers. Well, that's pretty special, isn't it?
Hopefully there'll become a time when we don't have to keep this up because predators will have gone. People will be educated and the whole thing will be back to as it was in the 1970s. But we'll see about that.
What I say to school kids is that what I don't want to happen is that you might be in my position in 30, 40 years' time and someone rings you and wants you to show them a braided river and a ribel, and you have to say to them, oh, I can show you a braided river, all right, but I'm afraid, sorry, I can't show you a ribel because they're all gone. We didn't look after them, disappeared. And that's most definitely what we don't want. So that's the mission of the Ashley Rakahuri River Care Group, is to look after the river, particularly its birds, while catering for other users of the river who use it in a sympathetic way to that goal.